Now, the reason I chose to do this fan film as my first official film is because I've always loved Indiana Jones, and I almost did an Indiana Jones fan film when I was in high school. And I got a great group of friends together that were all also very passionate towards the subject and filmmaking and acting and writing and just making it happen. And this project was really a dream come true. The reason that I chose to do Indiana Jones for my first film is because I wanted to pay homage to the greats, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, because they have a major inspiration on my taste in cinema. The idea was to give the movie a feel of the first three movies. As much as I love 4 and 5, I really wanted to bring the raw ingenuity that Spielberg and Lucas brought to that original trilogy. Now, pre-production of this film began last summer when I was on the phone with Fox.
I came to Jace and I kind of told him right after I'd watched Dial of Destiny. I had said, I can't wait until we make movies like this.
I will admit that when Jace first approached me wanting to make a fan film, I was extremely hesitant. It took some conversations for me to see the value in it.
Jace comes to me and he's pitching like, hey, let's do Indiana Jones fan film. What are your thoughts on that? Personally, I had no thoughts. The only familiarity I had with Indiana Jones was like the Lego Xbox game, which was so much fun. And the time that I had watched the movies was just years ago.
And Jace really made me understand that not only is it something that he's very passionate about, but that making something that already has a built-in audience attached to it could do really well for putting on the YouTube channel. Because, you make an original film, it's got some obscure name and a whole bunch of people attached to it that you've never heard of before. Not many people are going to be enticed into clicking on that on YouTube. And I really understand that for a lot of people out there, they're going to see the Indiana Jones name, they're going to see the Indiana Jones thumbnail, and they're going to think, oh, I know Indiana Jones, I like Indiana Jones, like, let me see what this is. And hopefully if they like the product, then that will drive them to our more original content that we're planning on making as time goes by. And plus it was so much fun. Like, who doesn't like Indiana Jones and everything attached to it?
So we start watching all three of the movies kind of back to back, and he does this very enriched dialogue like, okay, so you see how he did that? Like, that's so Indiana Jones, and like we need to incorporate that when we start writing, which was really cool because there were just things that I myself wouldn't have noticed or really like been attached to if it wasn't for some of like the background knowledge that Jace innately knows. And so it's just kind of enriched that an entire experience to just like, oh, I really do like Indiana Jones. The first obstacle, which is, okay, so what's going to be the artifact? Like what's our objective here? And so we played around with a few ideas, but we pretty much knew from the get-go that it was going to be the three gifts of the wise men, tying it into the gift of like potentially being able to resurrect or making it a resurrection offering. Of course, made it like valuable enough to be like, okay, I think the Nazis would fight for that.
Jace and Zion got together and nailed it in like a day, I think, and wrote an entire fan film.
So in every Indiana Jones movie, the artifact is key. Like, what is driving the story? Why does Indy need this artifact, and who else wants it? We didn't just want the artifacts to be what they were. We wanted to add some sort of history to them, some sort of mythology, some sort of magic. And the way we were able to do that was actually Gabby's idea. So Gabby had the wonderful idea of making the gold, frankincense, and myrrh have magical powers in the sense that Mary was able to use the exact gold, frankincense, and myrrh to lead to the resurrection of Jesus. So the idea was that the gold was some sort of a golden tablet with some sort of inscription on it that would be read. And then the frankincense would be lit, which would cause some sort of magical fumes. And then the myrrh would be an embalming fluid as it is. And with those three combined, that gives the power of resurrection. The idea was to really base it in the sense of, magical science and really explain that these artifacts worked. And that's why the Nazis wants the artifacts, so they can use the rest of them.
We would just sit there for hours and just kind of feed off of one another as far as, what the setting was going to be and like how our dialogue was going to exchange between Indy and like, our completely original fashionable character. So, what's authentic to what has been established and what can we add and contribute that is believable enough to the indie universe. I feel like some of the trouble that we encountered was creating really awesome fight scenes that we weren't really sure how indie was going to come out of. Like there were moments where we would create like really elaborate plot, fighting sequences, only to find out that we didn't know how indie was going to get out. So we have to redirect entirely, or find a way where it's like, oh, we need to establish this sooner, getting to a point and realizing we kind of had to work back. So you would take 3 steps forward, maybe 2 steps back, just to intertwine things as they should be and establish things without it being like, well, where did he get that from? That doesn't make any sense.
Now, when making a fan film, I still wanted to add something to the character. I didn't want to just reuse, repeat, recycle what we've seen already. I wanted to add another layer to Indy that we hadn't seen in the actual movies yet. And so this gave a great opportunity for us to sort of dive in to how Indy feels about his mother. It's barely mentioned, but we know it's a big reason why that him and his father have the rough relationship they do. So with our artifacts having the power of resurrection, we thought it would be a great idea to have Indy tempted to actually keep the artifact for himself. Now, besides in The Last Crusade, when Indy almost takes the Grail because he's tempted by its magic, we don't normally see Indy just want to keep something. I mean, I think it's a natural feeling of when you find $5 on the ground, or you're like, that's mine now. You would think that with, magical treasure, someone would feel the same way. So the idea is we're going to put a slightly younger Indy that has the power to bring his mother back to life. What does he do with that? Obviously he's not going to let the Nazis get it, but does he keep it for himself? Or does it belong in a museum?
It always hints at the fact that it's like, oh, you could have this power, Indiana. You could have it, but they never really like elaborate on like the temptation that Indy can have, like with, let's say, keeping the Ark of the Covenant and not putting it, not doing the right thing. I would say, like, since we've talked about in the script, there's very little known about his mom, and this is like, it's hinting at like, this is the power of resurrection. I think there is a much more tempting, higher temptation to draw Indiana in, and like, I could use these for something that I want to do, something that I want to take care of. And I feel like him kind of like saying no, or like kind of him kind of saying no to this is kind of like really what, if this was canon to all the other movies, kind of what pushes him forward to be more of a strong-willed character than anything else.
One of the reasons I never made this movie in high school is really because I never had the Indiana Jones actor. A major key to making these movies work is having the Harrison Ford or the River Phoenix, the Sean Patrick Flannery. You need someone that's able to carry the hat in the whip with purpose and to be believable. I'm an actor myself, but I would never step into the role of Indiana Jones just because it's not for me. But we lucked out with David. He did a wonderful, wonderful job and executed the role of Indiana Jones perfectly. He's got the height, he's got the charisma, and he's got the acting ability. Another reason that it was great to cast David was that he already knew how to use the whip. He's had a lot of experience in stage combat, and that was one of the specialty skills he was able to learn in college. So that was very convenient.
I mean, I definitely felt like a Nicolas Cage or in the Superman outfit for like a second, I grew my hair out like in college, and it was funny because every show I was in, every picture that I'm in college, my hair is long. Coming back after graduating and realizing like playing Indiana Jones, it's like, oh snap, I'm gonna have to get my hair cut. I thought it was a very cool moment in my life for like that chapter to kind of close. I think that was kind of like a college life, young adult life, that's kind of starting to come to a close, and I think a new chapter is beginning.
I was just so completely honored to be a part of the project, especially when it came to the writing process. They were making that character with me in mind, and I am so grateful for that. Fast forward a few months later, when we started production right after Christmas, I had came down all the way from Springfield, Missouri to Houston to do this. And we only had like 3 weeks to film because I'm not from the area and all the other actors are.
Once we had done the script and we had all elaborations kind of spelled out, like, oh, we want the desert to have this mirage heat wave coming off of it. Well, that's great. So I can draw that for the storyboard. But at this point, while the script is clear as far as what your objective of depicting is concerned, there's Now the camera angles, like where can we believably set a camera? It was almost like creating a comic in a way before you ever put flesh and bone to it. And what was nice about that is just kind of once again, a collaboration where it's like, of course, we had words, and that was valuable to the process. But now we have to like work together to essentially like see the same thing. And so Jace already kind of approached me with a lot of different kind of camera shots or angles that he wanted to do. But then for all like the weird in-betweens where it's just dialogue or conversation, thankfully that was a little bit more simplistic.
The storyboards had a lot of information of how they wanted the fights to go, generally speaking. It was funny because it was sort of like me trying to formulate fight choreography from a storyboard is like reading a comic book and imagining in your head what the fight would look like if it was in real life.
So I have a background in lighting design for stage. I started lighting designing in high school. I would lighting and set design mostly. I mostly focus on lighting primarily for film.
Before the project started, we already had some equipment at our disposal, and we didn't have any lights of our own. So that was definitely like a must purchase, especially after talking with Camden. It took a couple conversations between him and I. My emphasis when talking to him was that I wanted things that weren't going to just be good for this project, but that would carry over into all the other things we want to do, because we know we want to make more projects in the future. But it's all very, very nice. I was very impressed with like, the quality of it when it came in.
What you're trying to show and what you're trying not to show, I think, is also a very important question to ask when you're designing for film. Very intentionally decided not to show a whole lot of the cave by going practical. It just gave it a whole different atmosphere, a whole different feeling.
We kind of came up with the design based on the story, and so then we came up with what fit perfectly for each scene, because there was like 3 parts of the church, the cave, and then there was a secondary cave. And so that was kind of how we come up with each one of them. There's like a deeper cave once you go through one of the caves.
So for the set, it took a lot longer than I thought it would. We had the first couple of days planned out in October. After the first couple of days, it took a lot. Like, we didn't get as much done as we thought we were going to get done. And so what we thought would maybe take maybe a week or two turned into multiple months worth of having to plan out our meeting days, just because it took 8 or 9 days in total of having to meet together and finish the cave.
We built this set using 4x8 foam panels used for boat flotation. We wanted to connect each of them to make a wall, but we also knew that we could use the backside of the wall for a different cave scene.
And we have Indy and Hobart come across the mural of the 3 wise men. I'm thankful to have given basically that art piece into the world. And that was like a 5-foot by like 5-foot styrofoam tile that needed to be like the whole depiction of the wise men. And I wanted to be true to just more of like the Roman type mural or like mosaics that they have. So I wanted there to be like a sense of reverence with how that mural had turned out.
Due to the layer lines, we used a foam cutting saw, like a heat saw, and then we just made jagged edges to make the layer lines, but we didn't expect that to take as long as it did. Each panel had about 30 to 40 horizontal layer lines on there, and each line per panel probably took around 5 minutes. We used about 9 different panels, front and back, so that was close to 18 sides of this foam panel that took 5 minutes per layer line.
I remember getting out of Jace's car, I think, and I was walking to the set, and it wasn't just Lamar building the set. It was like Lamar's sister, and it was a few more people, and I was just like, wow. In my mind, that was when it clicked. It was like, it's really taking everyone to make this film. To all the crew people that were a part of that, I mean, that film would not have been done without, everyone that helped along with that. Gabby, Lamar, Lamar's family for sure, just everyone, Josh, there's so many people to name.
Filming on the cave set was amazing, but also incredibly difficult. We didn't have the sand out yet either, so we got there It was very late. It was very cold, and there was no sand poured yet. So we were pouring sand, and I'm on my hands and knees, like spreading sand around to make sure it's all doesn't look like it's been stepped on yet. And I cannot express how cold it was. I, we're in Texas. We're not really used to super cold weather. We don't get it very often. I think it was in the 20s, but it wasn't just that it was in the 20s. It was very wet outside. It was like this humid kind of cold. It really just like got under your skin, and like no matter how many layers you had on, you could not get warm enough.
I think it was like 20 degrees outside. I just remember it being so freezing cold. We were doing the scene where Indiana Jones and Egon Hobart, they get into the cave for the first time, and they're kind of exploring this cave, and Jace wanted us to be so dirty and everything, like, because we looked too clean. And I remember David and I went in this pen, just got in there and just started rubbing all this dirt all of us, kind of make it look like we had been exploring in this cave for a while.
There was years of feces in that pen.
So we knew we wanted to have a practical set for our actors to actually explore with. But for lighting, we wanted something practical as well. It was very important to me that this movie had a real torch in it, because I wanted, the audience and the actors to feel the flame and feel that sort of discovery.
For the torch, I had first tried isopropyl alcohol, and that didn't work very well. It burned out way too quick, and also didn't hold a big flame. And so then we did diesel, where we just soaked it in diesel. That did its job pretty well.
Since we had to keep going back, the nature of filmmaking, you have to keep going back and reshooting the same thing. Keep the lighting consistent. I think we went through 2 or 3 different torches of having to be, snuffed out and relit, rewrapped, all that stuff, just to keep it a consistent look throughout that scene. That was a challenging thing to do, especially during that night when it was so windy, and it was the first night of shooting was just bitterly cold.
It was difficult. The first night definitely was a big learning curve for us regarding like keeping our actors warm and making sure that we knew how to work in that kind of environment.
Jace wanted Fox's feet to dangle into frame, and we built like a sawhorse essentially with a piece of wood going across, and Fox sat on it, but there was nothing for him to lean back to dangle his feet. So I just stood there and held Fox, the whole time while I was, doing the scene, but Fox kept laughing. And so we had to keep redoing the scene, and it was just crushing me the whole time. I had to hold him up just because he was basically laying on top of me. I struggled to carry Fox because, one, he's scared of heights, and he was probably elevated maybe 10 feet in the air. He was so heavy, and I asked him, I said, what is making you so heavy? And it turned out he had this satchel that was full of just random like items, like a hair dryer, like a brick, like 4 books. There was like 4 D&D books in there. I don't know why he was carrying all of it.
I really wanted this film to stand out by shooting on location as well. So not only did we make a practical cave set for our actors to film in, but we wanted to really go to a real desert environment, so our actors can really feel like they're out there. We wanted those visuals to pop, and we felt that was very important for the success of the film, and to really, really feel like an Indiana Jones movie. So we took a 10-hour road trip from Houston, Texas to Terlingua, Texas, right by the border of Mexico. I mean, it was just a blast. Being out there was a great experience, even if we weren't filming, and the fact that we were making a movie on top of it, it led to a trip that I'll never forget.
But we had a 10-hour drive, and that was just one direction, so it was 20 hours total.
The Terlingua trip was a lot of fun.
We were like all packed, ready to go. We were ready to travel across Texas, 10 hours across Texas.
That was such a crazy thought. Driving 10 hours.
We had such a small window of time that Fox was with us, and trying to plan a 10-hour trip inside of that time frame and also get everything else that we needed done was not easy, to say the least.
The vehicle we had taken, which was my truck, had, I guess, broken down is what you would consider. It was an issue with the cooling vent getting stuck, and so we got stuck at a auto shop for a couple hours, which definitely delayed a lot of things.
And that delayed us like 4 hours, I think. But there were some really cute dogs there. There was this little Chihuahua
if it wasn't for those two dogs, I think everybody probably would have lost their minds for a second. You know, there was like an itty bitty chihuahua and some other dog. And we were just like, they were just chilling. We were hanging out with them.
The little dog definitely, it soothed some of the insanity that was brewing underneath the surface.
But like once we took off, you know, it was pretty much smooth sailing with occasional stops for like food, gas. Or it was like 8 o'clock rolled around, and I was kind of like, how much more time do we have till we get there? And somebody said like 4 more hours, and I was like, geez.
We were already going to be getting to Terlingua pretty late, and you know, being all the way out there, there's hardly any light pollution. There's not a lot of street lamps and street lights, so we quite literally were driving in the middle of nowhere in the pitch dark, like in the middle of the night. But it ended up being fun. It was a great experience.
It was pitch black. I remember we pulled up and you could just see stars. It was just so dark outside, and I was like, all right, I'm ready to go to bed.
The trip was a lot of fun. Seeing the night sky at Terlingua without any light pollution was very cool. We were able to see all the constellations and stuff you wouldn't normally see in a city setting.
We had to get every single shot in. And I remember we actually forgot Egon's glasses, his reading glasses, and I think we stopped at like some gas station.
Josh was able to find some glasses that were some shades that looked time period enough. And we were able to scrape off the logo on them and put them on Egon for the opening sequence.
And also just being to a national park. Never been to a national park before.
Like seeing Big Bend National Park was just beautiful in itself. I mean, it was just so incredible. And let me tell you, it really makes you feel like you were an Indiana Jones film.
You know, I kind of was sitting there and I thought to myself, I was like, this is real. Like, we're actually doing this.
I can't tell you how much fun I had just being out there and filming. Like, it was just amazing.
A lot of independent filmmaking is about what do you have access to, who do you know, and what can you use in general? What can you even steal shots of? And so Lamar, who built our set, also has a lot of connections in general. And he was able to not only provide one location, but multiple. And he provided so many locations, he would tell me during the writing process, and we were able to implement these things into the script itself.
Fox and David even actually got to fly in the plane, which was nice.
I'll never forget this. Pilot asked us, he was like, hey, do you and you guys want to go up in the air for a little bit? You know, it was just so crazy. And we both looked at each other and we're like, yeah, let's do it. You know, I mean, how many times you get to say, you know, I did a scene in a moving plane, you know what I mean? Like, it was just so cool. Our trajectory was literally like this, you know, and then we went right back down, you know, but it was still such the craziest fun, you know, most fun little hop you can ever do in a plane.
A lot of the lighting in those movies, it's either very dark or it's very bright. And that's a very intentional choice made during that shooting process. Because Indy always sort of has this shadow on him. There's a lot of silhouette use, again, which we call back to in later scenes in the movie.
As far as challenging things go that I do think affected the end product of the movie was definitely the bar. The bar is definitely one of the instances that we couldn't necessarily translate our plans into the actual film that ended up being made. And it's still great. It still came together really, really well. You can't beat being given access to a location like that to film. I'm incredibly grateful, especially because when you're filming a period piece too, like options are even more limited.
Mostly influenced by a lot more of like older westerns. The bar scene in like movies like Once Upon a Time in the West, where harmonica gets introduced, that really kind of shadowy look where everything's kind of faded, everything, it looks like that really tungsten kind of color temperature value. That's kind of what we tried to implement in the bar that we shot in. We had 2 lights for that were being bounced off of the ceiling. So it was trying our best to get a much more even wash so there wasn't this harsh light on any of the characters.
We got to that bar every morning at Jason and I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I think.
In the Indiana Jones movies, there's always multiple antagonists. So in our film, I wanted to have that as well. For the role of Rhett Autry, aka Heinrich Meyer, I wanted to cast someone who I'd actually never worked with before. Justin is a tremendous stage actor. He's one of those guys that can play every role. I don't think there's anything that he can't do. So he felt like the exact right choice to play our crazy, charismatic villain. Justin gives a very subtle performance. Brian De Palma talks about, while making The Untouchables, Robert De Niro gave such a subtle performance that he didn't even realize how good he was in the movie. And that's the same way I felt about Justin. He was putting in good work that I was aware of, but I really didn't notice it until I got the footage and I really got to watch him and see all these little things that he did. I mean, he's just tremendous.
I had to figure out how to act on camera for the first time. And rather than focus on playing for a huge audience, I had to play for a camera. So it was dealing with subtle movements and subtle facial expressions.
So Justin is more of the talkative antagonist, but our fighter, aka John Cooper or Oscar Van Buren, is played by Trevor Moresco. Now he's someone I've directed on stage before and worked with many times on different projects. There's nothing that Trevor will say no to. He's the ultimate director's actor. He takes notes, he listens, and he does what he's told. He always, always, always gives a great performance. One of my favorite people to work with for that reason.
I really enjoyed the idea of playing an antagonist because I have played an antagonist before in a couple of different plays and a musical or two here, but this is my first time playing an antagonist in a short film. So to be able to like see that side of my acting, I really enjoy diving into it. I really enjoy playing an antagonist. I learned that from this.
Being able to participate in that choreography as an actor in the movie was really, really fun because I felt like I got to do so much in the movie. There were some times the storyboard, there were some extra things that Jace would want, and it was very fun because I got to work on my toes because there was just something that we needed to work out or something didn't look right, where I needed to add something because there was some timing we needed to fix. Some of the choreography that I made those fight scenes better, but I also think funnier too. One of the scenes I'm thinking of in my head right now is in the middle of the bar fight scene at the pool table when the cowboys knock all the Nazis off the pool table and the one cowboy full on tackles one of the Nazis to the floor. It was so funny to choreograph and it was so funny to watch. And honestly, I don't think it could have gone any better than how it did.
Aaron gets tackled, and we're all just watching this happen and watching it all just come to life. And that to me was just like the moment in the film where it's like, this is why we're doing what we're doing for a moment like this, where like what seems so small, and it's literally like 3 seconds in the movie, but I think that moment just showed me like, wow. This is why people do film. I think it's for just the camaraderie and like, you know, the execution of it all. And it was really impromptu, the whole thing. And just being able to be a part of that and watch that, and just being able to be in the process overall it was truly a blessing.
It was kind of my first stunt I've ever done. And I fall on a table and Jace wanted me to jump off a ladder. It was very safely made and everything, but that was terrifying. And there's some pretty funny videos of that, of me just falling and screaming over and over. But no, it was so much fun. That was just a blast.
In the scene, I was trying to be very friendly, trying to be very cordial with Mr. Jones and his little sidekick. But then eventually we have to start fighting in the bar. And then from that point on, we're this whole other character, which is super fun to be able to do essentially 2 different characters, even though they are the same John Cooper. It was super fun to do both sides of that.
Just the work ethic that all of those people had for that entire bar shoot was just really, really special. Very, very exhausting to film just because it was such long hours and everyone was just so exhausted. But I mean, man, there's nothing else like it. There really is nothing else like making a film with your friends. And that was what that environment was. There was never any moments of like, oh, this is, not fun. You know what I mean? Like, it was never anything like that. It was always, this is just so enjoyable. And I'm so happy I'm a part of this.
With the character I was playing, I had to do 2 different dialects. So figuring out how to do those dialects in a camera setting was very interesting for me. Fortunately, with the great writing that I was given, I was able to have a lot of fun with just like playing I tried to like up the charisma for the red archery part where I was all southern. I tried to up that, make it almost seem like a like a villain you would see in like Red Dead Redemption type thing. And then playing just a crazy Nazi is always interesting, and being able to play with levels is something that I had fun doing. Do you get to think, what is my point of view? What do I need in this situation? And walking that line is really fun.
The acting was very enjoyable. Being able to dress up as a Nazi was really cool.
Filming on the bridge with the special effects, particularly the fire, was very fun. Working with the fire, just holding that bag and holding it out in front of me, and then having a match get thrown in, and I have to.
Jace brought up the fact that he wanted to have actual pyrotechnics in this movie. When we did actually get to the point where we had to light the bag on fire, it was very cool because I was the one primarily involving myself in making sure that the chemical concoction of dish soap, water, and butane, it was cool to see something like that because we really had to think outside the box for stuff like that, which I think, given the tools we had at our disposal, I think it was really fun. And it was I personally just love fire, so I think it was just really cool that I got to be involved with that as well.
Sitting in the makeup chair for the first time, that was really interesting.
So when it came to SFX makeup, I've actually done SFX makeup for quite a while. I was taught it like pretty early into like my theater career. I used corn syrup, cocoa powder, and then I'll use different mixtures of red, blue, and green dye, all at different intervals depending on what color I want the blood to be. When it came to especially like the stuff on the train and the train tracks, it was constantly go mode because we were very worried about being asked to leave at any given moment. That it was very much one of the situations where the blood was applied and then there was no ability to touch things back up.
It was really cool being able to do all the different stunts and being there for organizing other people's stunts as well. The different settings to even act in the first place, like on the railroad, was really cool. I'd never just like been to a railroad. I had been around them or just driven over them for like 2 seconds, but I'd never gone to just like a railroad and just shot stuff before. So that was really cool.
And you get to see over time through this journey where he's following Indiana Jones and his sidekick throughout the whole process. And as he's going through this journey, trying to hunt them down, he loses people that he obviously cared about a lot, especially Justin's character as well. And seeing him die, I think, is a big moment for John Cooper to be like, okay, now these guys are going down.
To continue the trend of filming on location, we filmed at the Galveston Railroad Museum. That was an excellent experience. They have so many train carts from the early 1900s that are period and actually fit within the time frame of our movie. Trains that would actually be there in the year 1933 were there, and we got to not only act on them, but fight on them. Now, we did sneak some fights that we didn't tell the train station about that we would be doing. So, luckily, no one got in trouble or no one got hurt or nothing got messed up. But we had a great time and got some great footage out of it.
Like filming in there was actually really cool because, one, it's like, okay, super authentic, super perfect location to film at. It's just like, looking at history, you're fighting on like, I don't know, a piece of history. There was a family that walked in. I have a husband and wife and like 2 kids or something like that went in. And they second they saw me, they kind of had like this look of horror, and I was like, no, it's just fake fighting. And they're like, oh, okay, sounds good. And it was just kind of like there was a moment where it was like this encounter is like lasting way too long. Y'all gotta move on, y'all gotta go to the next car. And so everybody just kind of sat there for like a second and then moved on. I remember just like looking around being like what, like what's going on.
We're like, I'm chasing him through a hallway, and then we end up in this mail room where the fight choreography was all made in that same day, because we didn't even know we were going to be doing that scene. But David and me were just so excited, and Jace was totally on board with it as well, to just do and make it. And as we're going, we're going to make it as we go. And it turned out to be honestly my favorite fight scene in the whole movie. it was super cold that day as well. So we were definitely in it together, and we definitely got the train fights super awesome, super cool to do all that, and the physicality.
Where Trevor and I were kind of going back and forth and talking about, oh, we could put the sword, lock it in there, and we could like knee the hand and, you know, run out of the way. And that was like all one continuous shot.
We started filming on the boat, and man, that was such a freaking blast. Just getting to go out in the water on a boat to film a movie. It was just like, it was just like, wow, I really feel like a movie star right now.
I would even say like the choreography, even from like, you know, the fist fights like on the boat, which that was fun. It was really weird, you know, where I remember we did this all in like the backyard. So much different because now you're actually on set and you have to basically kind of like, I guess, compromise with the boat about where you're going to stand, what's sticking out of the boat that's like ties the rope down. And I know Fox and Trevor had to talk a good bit about like what part of the boat are they going to end up. And I know we flipped it at one point. We was on the left side and we switched it to the right side of the boat. Anything could change, but as long as you still have the essence of that fight, I think it's, you know, always fun to collaborate.
And that was super fun. I've actually never been on like a tugboat. And I get thrown into the water, which was such a big experience because I have never fallen off of a boat because you're not supposed to do that. But whenever my arm gets chopped off and I fall off the side of the boat, that was such a riveting big experience for me because I am a good swimmer, but I never had to swim in like steel toe boots before. So it was super fun. And the safety, I felt safe the whole time. Also, there were guys waiting for me just to make sure everything went well. But I was really having a lot of fun with that one. And then we had to do the take twice. So I was already cold, but then I got thrown into cold water again. It was super fun though. And Jace was such a good director that he made sure the whole step of the way that I was taken care of. But that was honestly super fun. I liked falling off of that boat a couple times. I would have done it 3 more times if Jace needed me to. It would have been great. But the shot turned out super well, and I really enjoyed my time on there.
I did get really, really seasick after our first day of filming on that boat. We had been on that boat, I think, for about 7 hours, something like that. It was a lot. It was a while, and yeah, it was rough. It was rough for me that first day. But yeah, I mean, just being out in the water, getting to film, so much fun.
Fox is definitely one of those people where it's like he's 110% in anything that he's doing, and I think just his enthusiasm and his passion, you know, for just acting in general, it makes me want to give 110% back. And I think, you know, there was a lot of times where I was really in my head during like the filming process. I was really like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know if I'm doing that right. I don't know if that scene looks good. I don't know if that other scene looked good. And I don't know, every time we'd usually start, you know, Fox would, you know, he would jump in, like no worry, no care, no anything. He was just ready. And I don't know, I think that kind of like reflected back on me where it was like, what do you have to be worried about? You know, it's just you and him, just me and him in this scene. Let's just go for it. Let's just jump back and forth and see what happens. And I feel like that was really kind of what kept me in it. Coming together, you know, I think our bond just like as friends just grew as these characters' bonds grew. So I don't know, it was a really fun process working with him. I don't know, he's just a great friend to have for sure.
Getting to like officially be kind of like more be in more scenes with David, and you know, like we're actually acting partners on a lot of these things. It was just so much fun, and man, those are some memories I'll never forget.
Indy's character, like kind of basically being tempted into something that basically he could have exactly what he wants. But I think him, like you having the willpower to refuse that, I think that really catapults him into the character that he is in the movies. And I don't know, I like the ending because it's very much like, you know, they go their separate ways, but it's not like it's see you later, but it's not goodbye. You know, you might see me again.
Now, ending this movie was very, very important to me. I wanted it to lead right into the Temple of Doom, in a sense that we could understand that this is the same character. I didn't want Indy's ending to just make sense, but I wanted Egon's to work just as well. We wanted Indy to have an arc, but also be able to build a new character in Egon Hobart. The idea comes from Jurassic Park 3. Dr. Alan Grant talks about in life, there's astronauts and there's astronomers. And I think that Indiana Jones and Egon Hobart are the definition of that comparison. I'd like to think that once this movie ends, that these two continue with a great relationship. And within our headcanon, I believe that Egon can easily be woven in between the other movies to be a friend of Oxley, a friend of Basil Shaw, Marcus. I think he just fits in with those characters, and they all had a great inspiration on creating him. So we wanted to make someone that felt true to the Indy universe and someone that Indy would get along with. One of the first things that I was very eager to do was the ADR, which Gabby took over and did a wonderful job of.
I actually went ahead and got like a trial, and now I have a subscription to Adobe Audition, which I spent quite a bit of time learning how to use, and it's made me so much more familiar with sound, how to capture it, what you're looking for in good sound versus bad sound, and even things like room tone. I didn't know what room tone was, but now I do, and I've gotten really good at editing it, and I actually really, like, going forward, would like to continue doing the ADR. Doing that whole process, I enjoyed it so much. It was so much fun.
It's really like you really have to get really nitpicky to it, because you don't want the same grunts like over and over, and I was like, okay, what if I can like try and see if I can go up here? What if I do a grunt yell here? What if I just scream? And I think just like the variations and just kind of picking out like, okay, maybe this can sound different than that, because I don't want it to be like the same vocals like over and over and over again.
Now, something this movie wouldn't work without is the original score composed by Matthew Coleman. I knew that we needed a score that was going to be able to carry this movie, and Matthew doesn't only do that. I mean, he makes this movie what it is. I'm very, very proud of the work that he's done and the way that he was able to pay homage to the great John Williams, and it was just a blast working with him on this whole process.
When Jace first sent me this idea of doing the music behind Indiana Jones, I kind of already knew that it was going to be a good amount of work. And at the beginning, I won't lie, I was a little hesitant because of that work. I didn't know if I'd have the time to do it. But Jace, he really reassured me that, this is a project that's going to be worth it. And that reigns true. That truly reigns true. It was a lot of work, and the process was... at some points it was really tedious, and at some points it was kind of difficult, maybe even a little frustrating, just because of the timing of that this project kind of happened, with it being the last week of school and finals week and things like that. But I think it reigns true that, having the end result was it's worth it. It was worth it all the way. I figured out that I really enjoy creating scores with the director alongside, compared to doing it more like at home and then like sending him a track and then like getting feedback and like trying to edit. I think that's just a little bit more of a process. Maybe that's where some of the frustration came. But when we're sitting, like me and Jace, we're just sitting and we're just collabing, man, I don't think anything else could have really just captured what happened in that room. Mind you, we are recording this music in a library, quiet room. We're like bouncing from a different room each time we're going to record this music. I'm like hauling my keyboard from the dorm room to the campus. Everybody's kind of like looking at me, and I'm just happy as all. I'm just super happy, because U of HCL doesn't have a music program, and I think it was really cool being able to like bring music to the campus. I think that was really cool. And then, like I said, just being like tucked in this room with just me, Jason, Gabby, just like coming up with ideas, and just the whole process of it all was truly a blessing.
I just wanted to say thank you to all the Indiana Jones fans that clicked on our movie and have clicked on now the behind the scenes features to see what it took to make. Thank you to all my friends and family who have helped with this process, or just watch the movie or support me in any way. Making this movie has been one of the greatest experiences of my life, and it's taught me so much about the art of filmmaking. I can't wait to make another one, and I can't wait to see what's next.
There was no space for rearranging things or pushing stuff back. Like, we had our dates picked, and those dates were either going to work or we weren't going to get the footage. Ultimately, we're very proud of the work we did through those circumstances.
I think I definitely made an impact. And I think that, if Jace was happy with the choreography and the audience is happy with the choreography, that's all I care about.
Overall, just a great time doing my first film with great people.
Looking back on it, I mean, just the amount of things that we accomplished within that time frame, it really is astonishing, and it was very, very professional.
And huge kudos to everybody that was involved with the film. I do think we have an extremely talented cast with an extremely talented director, Jace. He did such a good job. And all of our makeup artists along with that, and the sound design. We couldn't do it without everybody there. But I would like to specifically thank working with David as Indiana Jones and Fox as Egon Hobart. You guys did a fantastic job at leading this film, and I think it is a fantastic film because of you guys. And I'm really thankful to have worked with you guys, and I look forward to working with everybody again.
This is something that is not just for us to have, but it's something that, you know, our kids, our grandchildren can look back on 60 years from now and be like, wow, like these guys created this when they were 21, 22, 23. And they just had Jace had a vision, and he got a group of friends and, went through it. I think that's what a creator just loves to do.
So please stay tuned, and thank you for watching.